As Iran pays a 6-day public farewell to its former supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, the major question that seems to be of relevance to all of us is what these public funeral processions reveal about the current state of affairs in the country. The Islamic Republic undoubtedly wishes to send a particular message to the world at large, a message of resilience, continuity, defiance, and more than anything else, perhaps, vengeance of some sort against the United States, with which Iran has recently signed a memorandum of understanding whose implementation period is still underway, and against Israel, the destruction of which remains part of the official ideology of the system in Tehran and one of the most perhaps problematic aspects of its wider outlook. But the reality seems to be far more complex than it may initially appear. Some already speak, in a very academic sense of course, of a new regime in Tehran. After all, those who mounted the Islamic Revolution of 1979 have now all but passed from the political stage. The question is what kind of power is now assuming responsibility for the future of Iran. I'm Orkhan Amashov, you're watching Context. And joining me now from Tehran is Mohammad Khatibi, journalist and Iran foreign policy analyst. Joining us from Doha, Qatar is Luciana Zakara, Middle East and Iran policy analyst. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen. My first question is addressed to Mr. Khatibi. We understand, Mr. Khatibi, that all of this multi-stage, multi-city, even to a certain extent multi-country, because some of the processions are happening actually in Iraq. Funeral processions are highly choreographed, of course, as they perhaps should be, bearing in mind the magnitude of this occasion. What do they think reveal about the current state of affairs in Iran?
So this funeral procession shows different aspects of the situation in Iran. First, it shows that despite the United States attacks against the leadership of the country and constant bombing and massive killings inside Iran by the United States and Israel, Iran was capable to resist that and show that it is still capable to mobilize mass and large amounts of people in its support, and it is continuing to show that there is big support for the state, and the people of Iran, many of them, are supporting the state, and they will not let go the ideology of the resistance against the state. So another important issue is that Iran leadership is capable to negotiate with the United States despite the increasing pressure on its economy and also the constant threat to bomb Iran by the United States. So people in Iran are showing that they will not give in to the pressures by the United States, and during these days of processions, we are seeing people urging for retaliation and even killing Trump. They want the state not to negotiate, rather get the revenge of the leader of Iran. And this is a clear and loud message from the people who participated in this processions. So most of the people participating in these funeral processions are urging for revenge rather than negotiations. So the majority of the people are not willing to negotiate with the United States. I mean, the people who participated in the negotiations. However, the government is still on the negotiating table, but it will not last if the United States continues to violate the ceasefire agreement terms, including not putting a leash on the Israel, and Israel continues to occupy southern Lebanon, and the United States tries to undermine Iran's control in the Strait of Hormuz. So this is what Iran wants everyone to know.
Thank you, Mr. Khatibi. I'm very grateful to you. It's another question, of course, to what extent it is actually government's intention that people's desire for vengeance is visible as well. But of course, we'll come back to the point about vengeance, because to what extent actually vengeance helps peace is another question. And whether Iran needs a continuation of the current struggle is also another question. We'll come back to that. Mr. Zakara, are you impressed by the scale of these funeral processions? I mean, let's be very clear. For all of the problematic aspects, as one one may find in the Islamic Republic of Iran. We've got a country which has just emerged from a devastating conflict, whose military capabilities have undoubtedly suffered, yet it has still managed to stage a remarkable display of public mobilization. What is your reflection on these funeral processions?
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, I've been, when Rafsanjani funerals in Iran, I've been, when Soleimani was killed, and the funerals were also massive. And people from all over the places went to say goodbye to his remains. Even people that they were not 100% supportive of the Islamic Republic, people that they were reformists or they were even anti-Islamic Republic were attending to that funeral, because the figure of Soleimani was beyond politics. It was someone revered by many people beyond those who are supportive of the Islamic Republic. I'm not surprised that it was possible to mobilize that amount of people in this funeral. Surprising for me is that the remains of Khamenei went also, or are going to go tomorrow, if I'm not wrong, to Iraq. It's the first time that the funeral of one head of state, because at the end of the day, Khamenei, it is a head of state, beyond religious credential, is going to another state to receive respect from the people from another country. I think that is giving a signal to the US and to the rest of the region that the figure of Khamenei is much more important than someone that is only the head of state, but it's a figure that was also respected and supported by people from Shia background, mainly from many places in the whole region. I think this is a strong message that they want to send to the rest of the region and also to the United States. Of course, this doesn't mean, it's very difficult to quantify always if this means that more people support the current government than less people. I mean, it's impossible to say 50, 51 or 49. This is always be a big debate. But the point that these massive rallies in different cities in which the body was shown or was brought shows that there is still a big social base of the Islamic Republic that is still there. And most probably the fact that he was assassinated by the US made this funeral even much bigger than expected.
Yes, very interesting.
If Khamenei had died because of natural causes, probably we wouldn't see this manifestation.
And there are those, Mr. Zakara, actually saying that in early 2026, the legitimacy of the Islamic Republic of Iran was in tatters, and after Israeli-US attacks, actually, it gave rise to something very unique there, and increasing legitimacy. Mr. Khatibi, one of the most perhaps intriguing aspects of this ceremonies is that Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, has remained almost entirely out of public view. Basically, we haven't seen him. Is it something that Iranians are worried about?
So this is not common for the leader of Iran to be absent in public ceremonies, but people understand that there is a great risk for his life because of the Israel's intentions to kill him, and they think that if he shows up before there is a concrete deal between Iran and the United States, there is a risk for his life. But the important issue here is that Iran is not being run by a person or an individual. However, institutions are still working. And as we saw during the war, after assassination of Iran's top leadership, Iran was still capable to attack United States bases as well as its assets in the region hours after the start of this war. It shows that Iran is not being run by an individual, but rather institutions that ran the whole country. So people are trying to understand the situation and the risk to his life, and they try to trust the institutions that the late leader has given the foundation to, and they are trying to rally around the flag to show support for the current government and show support for the actions of the current leadership.
Mr. Zakara, how much does the individual occupying the office of Supreme Leader matter under the present circumstances? We haven't seen Iran's Supreme Leader since his ascendance to power after he was injured during those attacks during the first hours of the war, which started on the 28th of February. We haven't seen him. Iranians, I mean, according to Mr. Khatibi, they fully understand the security aspects. Perhaps two questions, I mean, together. How important is the fact that Supreme Leader is not visible? And perhaps number two question, who do you think in charge of Iran at present, in real terms?
Well, I mean, the evidence is that the fact that he hasn't been visible did not change that much what is going on in Iran.
Do you also agree that had he been visible, Israelis would have considered the continuation of policy of decapitation that they carried out during the first hours of the war and month?
Yeah, I think this is a legitimate concern that this is why he was not visible. I mean, there are many rumors, and of course, it's, from outside, it's very difficult to confirm any rumor that is going around about his whereabouts. But the fact that he hasn't been visible as his father used to be did not change the situation, did not change the fact that people is still resilient, did not change the fact that the military were fighting the same way that they were fighting before, did not change the strategy of the Iranian government, following on one side the military resistance against the attacks from Israel and the United States, and on the other hand, the diplomatic channel with Pezeshkian and Arakchi. So if there was no leadership existing, or it was an absent leadership, you wouldn't see this kind of policies implemented in Iran. Rather, it would be a much more controlled, military control policies, considering that they would feel, or they would tend to feel, the vacuum of power generated by the lack of this leadership. So my point is that I think that leadership is still there, not visible, but present, and the fact that we can see these developments in both in the military and the political diplomatic side shows that there is someone still there. Whether he's in full control of the political arena is something different to discuss, but at least there is some interlocution there with someone occupying that position that has a big quota of power and legitimacy still there, and still supported by the whole institutional structure. I think that we can clearly say.
Mr. Zakara, if you remember, during the first months of the war, there were episodes of Iranians attacking different geographical locations, and then IHC people basically using very strong rhetoric, whereas political leadership, Mr. Pezeshkian and Arakchi, Foreign Minister Mr. Arakchi, saying that actually it wasn't Iran that did what happened there. And back then, many analysts talking about the lack of coordination during those dramatic days of the war. Do you think Iran was properly controlled by the internal leadership back then as well?
And probably we faced a kind of conflict between the military and the political branches. It happened before. I mean, during Rouhani's second term, it was very clear the confrontation between Rouhani, who wanted to recover the control of the foreign policy, and the RGC that was saying basically, we decide what to do in Syria and Iraq, and not the Rouhani government. So probably we face this kind of confrontation to see who is more influential in determining the foreign policy and in determining the strategy. But now, lately, we've seen that the diplomatic track is more important, is being more visible, despite the fact that the military are still on alert every time that there is required. But this gives me an idea that the leadership could be balancing the two sides, trying to keep calm, trying to have a more consensual policies than accepting one side imposing over the other. This balancing capability was also exercised by Khamenei along many years. He was more an arbiter rather than a leader imposing his will. We have to bear in mind that the Iranian system has many different forces that at some point they are discussing what are the best options for the state. Now they are more controlled by the conservative, but this doesn't mean that there is no discrepancies. and that these discrepancies have an arbiter trying to balance the two or different sides that exist.
Thank you, Mr. Zakara. Mr. Khatibi, I have long been in the habit of using the term regime in a very academic sense, not in a pejorative sense, and I'm going to use the term in an academic sense now. There are those commentators saying that in Iran, in Tehran, there's a new regime. And even President Trump is saying that there's a new regime there. What do you think they mean by new regime? Do you believe that that generation that mounted the revolution of 1979, bearing in mind that that generation is gone basically, they're no longer in charge, and those people who are actually in charge of the country, people like Mr. Ghali and many others, they are in their 60s and they were teenagers back in 1979. Do they mean the generational change, or do they mean really something fundamentally having changed about modern Iran?
I don't think that something fundamental has been changed in Iran because of the actions of the Islamic Republic and what happened in the ground. For example, look at the negotiations and how the Iranian negotiating team acted during the talk. So many people think that this 14-article MOU is a victory for Iran and a big loss for the United States. And the articles of the MOU show that Iran did not give in to the United States pressure, and it will continue as it is, like the time of the late leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei. And the important issue is that the United States, by killing Ayatollah Khamenei, his father, prevented and the whole system from acting rationally for quite some time. And there is a big issue right now here. He was the only person against the nuclear bomb by issuing a fatwa. Right now, there is no such fatwa by the new leader, and there is a possibility of Iran pursuing nuclear bomb. Even some Westerners say he is more hardliner than his father. And I think that the United States, the only thing that it did was to worsen the situation by attacking Iran and killing Iran's leader. The situation did not change after the assassination of the leader, but it became worse, and Iran started to retaliate even bigger than before by closing the Strait of Hormuz. And I think that if a new attack happens against Iran, Iran will not hesitate to use new options like, by the help of allies, closing the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb or attacking pipelines in Saudi Arabia or UAE. So there has been no so-called regime change in Iran, and the continuity of the state is being shown by the funeral processions right now being held across Iran. And I don't think that Trump is really aware of what he is saying about the situation in Iran, and there is no kind of issues about the leadership in Iran.
Thank you, Mr. Khatibi. I'm very grateful to you. So Mr. Ghalibaf and others are more radical, and the question is maybe more radical power came to the throne in Iran. And what is very fascinating, the dilemma here seems to be that in one sense, Iran, of course, has been considerably militarily weakened, I mean, over the past few months, of course. But simultaneously, of course, memorandum of understanding signed between Iran and the United States has been widely described as a sort of not at all a humiliating defeat for Iran, at least, to put it very simply. So that seems to be a very interesting part of the story. I also would like to hear your reflection. We have got literally a couple of minutes left, Mr. Zakara. How profound do you think has the last changes been in Iran over the past few months? Do you agree with Mr. Khatibi that there has been no regime change?
Well, formally speaking, no. Of course, the generational change happened. The most senior officials are now Ghalibaf, Arakchi, Pezeshkian, people that they were not central in Iranian politics 20 years ago. Most of them that they were important, they mostly disappear. But again, we see that the people that they are coming on their positions are not that different in terms of their ideological orientation and what policies are they pursuing. So I wouldn't say that there is a regime change at all.
Allow me to just intervene here very briefly. I mean, for many people, the regime change would mean fundamental change of approach of the Islamic Republic of Iran to the outside world. I mean, one of the key attributes of Iran's official ideology since 1979 is official destruction of the state of Israel is an official ideology, and that hasn't changed at all. I think that is one of the key attributes why defining the system's continuity in many ways. I trust you both agree with me on that.
Yeah, I mean, we have to bear in mind that the foreign policy principles of the Islamic Republic were coined by Khamenei in 1979. Neither Khamenei nor his son Mustafa will change that. This is a very, very strong to change that principles. And they have a very clear stance about what is Palestine, what is supposed to be Palestine in the context of Iranian foreign policy. So it's very difficult to see.
Thank you, Mr. Zakara. Sadly, time is very limited and time is of the essence. I have to conclude now. Well, of course, we can discuss to what extent it is actually damaging to the entire Middle East that destruction of one sovereign state has been declared as an objective of one sovereign state, but it's a different subject. I don't want to delve into that. Otherwise, this conversation will continue for the next 10 minutes, but we can discuss it separately later. I'm very grateful to both of you, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the language of vengeance, blood and defiance continues to dominate the funeral procession still underway across Iran, with powerful religious imagery reinforcing the identity of the Islamic Republic, wishes to project to its own people and to the wider world. Yet behind the slogans and the emotion lies a more enduring reality. States ultimately survive not through passion alone, but through strategy, adaptation, and the choices they make in moments of historic transition. Iran, of course, is changing. The question is what the intellectual, political, geopolitical substance of that very change will ultimately prove to be. After all, resistance, if it is to endure, is ultimately about survival rather than self-destruction. You've been watching Context. I'm Orkhan Amashov, and see you very soon indeed.